This is Dane Wigington with GeoEngineering Watch Radio for, what is today? Gosh, I'm losing track. June 23rd, 2015. Every day's, again, a bit of a blur. I lose track, as all of us do sometimes. In this particular point in time that we find ourselves in, there's so much happening so quickly. It's virtually impossible to stay ahead of it all. One just tries to tend the biggest fires, to put out the most important data, to try to determine what moves might be the most effective given the amount of time one has, the amount of resources one has. So anyway, yes, another day in the asylum. We'll get to direct questions about a quarter after. And if we can keep those questions concise and on topic, that would be great. There's a lot to talk about, I know. I just want to try to get as many people in as I can today. The population still now believes, because they've been conditioned to believe, that somehow technology is going to save the day and preserve this, in the words of James Kunstler, if anybody knows who he is. He wrote the book called The Long Emergency. But in the words of James Kunstler, a lot of people feel that technology will save us from the long emergency. The long emergency is a term he coined, and we're entering the long emergency right now. This is a fact. There's no way around it. We have about 60 million refugees on the planet right now. Never since World War II has anything like this been seen. Our media is not reporting on it. And ultimately, these refugees are climate and resource related. The ongoing conflicts in the Middle East and other places around the globe are not about freedom. They're not about democracy. They're about resources, period. Important for people to understand that. I know a lot of wishful thinking goes on with people talking about, because I hear this all the time. People bring up, well, we could, I mentioned this before, but everybody could fit in New Zealand or Texas, and this is not about elbow room. It's about resources. It's not about having enough space to throw your tent. There's much more to surviving than that. So again, ultimately, these 60 million refugees right now are resource, climate-related refugees, and this is going to get worse very, very quickly. We have some startling events unfolding, and I encourage those, even if you've formed your opinion based on a headline or something about the state of the climate, I encourage everybody to continue to look. Please don't believe me, just continue to look. We had one day, June 18th, 5 days ago, saw Arctic ice decline 320,000 square kilometers in one day. And I also want to mention again, what is considered Arctic ice pack is any area of ocean with 15% ice or more. Well, I think that still means 85% ocean. So again, a lot of falsification of facts, figures, data. Again, from unemployment to Arctic ice, there's nothing you can really count on from the government. And I typically rely on data from the ground, temperatures from various ground stations that we can access, and film footage from the ground, which is impossible to fake. So again, as all this happens, as the economic system, the economic house of cards, is collapsing, and that's what it is. Industrialized society is a house of cards. It's a machine that can only move forward, and when it can't move forward, the only other way it can move is backward into collapse, and that's happening now. A headline from today. In fact, a place for people to look for headlines. I encourage everybody to, if you have one news site to go to look for headlines, I would encourage you to search rice farmer. Just put that in the search engine, rice farmer. The first site that comes up is ricefarmer.blogspot.com. It's the best single-stop news site I've found. It's actually a rice farmer from Japan. No politics, no advertising, all categorized, great site. So from that site today, container shipping rates from China to U.S. collapse, to U.S. and Europe. This is related to the BDI, the Baltic Dry Index. Nature has historically provided about 75% of all global GDP for free. Not anymore. The system that we have all enjoyed was never sustainable. It's collapsing now. Another headline from the rice farmer site. And these headlines, by the way, are from publications that are recognized and credible all over the globe. They're not his publications. It's time to hold physical cash, Fidelity manager warns, ahead of systemic collapse. It's coming. Guarantee it's coming. We can't, I certainly don't claim to have a crystal ball. I certainly don't claim to know the how, the when, and exactly the manner in which this collapse will truly manifest itself. But if you have a car going 100 miles an hour and it's 10 feet from impact, it's safe to say no application of the brakes will stop what's coming. That's the scenario we face. And in fact, the human race is not hitting the brakes. They're hitting the gas. And even this close to total cataclysm, what's most of the population doing? They're shopping, vacationing, golfing, whatever they do. And I hope to hell that changes very soon, because we don't have a lot of time. If we can redirect this ship, we can buy some time. And that's what we need to do. And everybody's going to have to work toward that to make that happen. Sitting on the bench won't do it. And as far as headlines that people have bought into and relating to the collapse, the biosphere collapse that's occurring right now, climate collapse, many people have grabbed onto this propagated headline that the more CO2, the better. It's all good. The higher, the better. And this is absolute nonsense. And we have peer-reviewed study to prove this. Is CO2 necessary? Absolutely. But too much of anything is not helpful. We have peer-reviewed study, and I'm going to read from one of those studies right now. Rising levels of carbon dioxide, this is from, again, a peer-reviewed study. Rising levels of carbon dioxide could also and will also affect the quality of plant growth, according to a new study in Global Change Biology. There's several scientists' names on this I won't repeat. From the Department of Biological Environmental Sciences at the University of Gothenburg, Sweden, looked at the results of 8 experiments in 4 continents on crops, grasslands, and forests, and found that as carbon dioxide levels go up, the nitrogen content of the crop is lowered. In the case of wheat and rice, this would also mean lower protein levels. Furthermore, we can see that this negative effect exists regardless of whether or not the plant's growth increases. And even if fertilizer is added, states a plant physiologist and co-author of the report, this is an unexpected and new discovery. Again, it's very complicated. Nature is complicated, much more than we can comprehend. And of course, that's why the climate engineering issue is so profoundly destructive. It's the single most destructive force ever unleashed on planet Earth by the human race. There's no question about that. We're about to see massive heat in the Pacific Northwest, and this is directly related to what's happening in the Arctic. I've monitored this for 8 years. As the Arctic ice truly begins to implode, part of what they do to try to sustain that surface area, the West ends up being put under a massive heat dome, directs the jet stream through Alaska. They swing back down, cool down in the eastern U.S. That's coming as well. And the moisture and the cooler air is pumped back up towards certain areas of the Arctic where they're trying frantically to preserve some of the ice with methods that are so destructive that they may kill the entire planet in this process. And of course, there's much more going on than just climate engineering, and none of it's for the common good. None of it is for the common good. All about power and control, all of it. The biological experimentation that's going on as well, we all know about. So again, for all of us that are truly aware of this issue and at least somewhat aware of what's going on around the globe, and it's difficult, I concede, to really grasp the extensiveness of the cancer that now runs the human race, the cancer of not just psychopathic people at the top, but all the cowardly, tyrannical minions that do their bidding all the way down the ladder. In fact, before I finish my initial thought about living in the insane asylum, which I'll get to, in regard to the minions that carry out the bidding of the power structure, Congressman Doug LaMalfa, U.S. Congressman in Northern California, whom I confronted at 2 back-to-back community town hall meetings in Northern California. The second one was filmed. You can see that by searching geoengineeringwatch.org confronting a congressman. His aides, who used to call me at home after hours and even on the weekend to express their angst at the ongoing geoengineering spraying, after this meeting and after the presentation we did at the Shasta County Board of Supervisors, and after one of those supervisors came to a subsequent event I had and expressed his angst at what was going on, someone higher up the ladder obviously lit a fire under these congressional reps and told them to stop the dialogue on this issue. So now we've gotten a message from one of these Shasta County supervisors that basically said he was severely reprimanded. Well, who are they to reprimand him? Who are they? Why would he be intimidated by that? Because everyone in the whole chain is intimidated by those who control the flow of money. The flow of money goes right to the top, right to the central banks. So here again we have the minions doing the bidding of the clinically insane power structure, and they're all too willing to do it. And now these congressional aides who used to call me at home are now stating that all of our tests are wrong, which they know nothing about our tests, and a lot of our tests were done by highly credentialed former government employees. But they simply say whatever they're told to say because their paychecks and pensions depend on it. So given this is our whole system, this is why the Titanic is sinking right now, because too many people have forgotten the fact that the only thing we own, the only thing any of us own, is our honor, our virtue, and the correct use of our will. That's all. Everything else can be taken. And when you sell that for any price, you've lost everything that you actually owned. Everything. And our society has completely lost sight of the fact that all material possessions can be taken. Our lives can be taken. Our family members can be taken. But our will can never be taken. Never. And if people would not abandon that, people like these congressional reps and all the rest like them, we would be in a different situation. So all of us wake up in an insane asylum every day. And I'm sure there's many out there that feel that. I do. Every day I have to remind myself that this is not a bad dream. It's real. But I would also argue this. The sooner we accept this and resolve ourselves not to be adverse to it, but to embrace it, the fact that, as the Chinese proverb says, may you live in interesting times, and indeed we do. If we embrace this, everything changes. And not being adverse to it. One of the Asian traditions, and there are many great traditions with many profound nuggets of wisdom, but one of their basic fundamental building blocks is considered the three poisons: desire, aversion, and illusion. We're either trying to run from something, run towards something, or we're not seeing things as they are. You can fit most of Earth's and humanity's dilemmas into those categories. So instead of being adverse to what we face and trying to run from it, face it. Face it head on. You want to get rid of your angst and you want to feel some kind of solace, face it head on, dedicate yourself to it, figure out every day how you can move the ball forward, and that's where solace lies when you live in an insane asylum. Use that angst for fuel in the fight for the common good. That's how we can mentally sustain ourselves in this paradigm we find ourselves in, and that's how we might actually change it. We may actually be able to change direction of the Titanic that we're on. Doesn't mean our problems are over by any means. Does not mean they're over. But it means we've taken a quantum leap in the right direction, and the biggest leap we could take, as I've said over and over again, is to expose and halt climate engineering. And if we can get that far, then we have a chance. So with that, Russ, you said you're underneath a lot of storms out there. We're heading toward the 120-degree mark in Northern California. Temperatures are off the scale. It's scheduled to be in the one teens by some reports in Boise, Idaho. One teens in June. We are in total meltdown, and you're undergoing thunderstorms. You're going to get the big cool down again. It's the same scenario we saw in winter. It's about to shape up. I'll send you a map for the chat room in a moment. But what's the rest of the weather like there, Russ?
Well, same thing. I mean, we've been having drizzle for a few days, overcast. Air has been very intense with spraying. I believe they're hypernucleating. So we're just getting drizzle. Lots of storm clouds. We had a whole big lightning storm that came through just before this show. In fact, I wondered if we were going to be able to go on because we're having power outages. But other than that, it's just business as usual in terms of hypernucleating, keeping the moisture out of the air, storm clouds passing, and very little rain.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you completely saturate the atmosphere with aerosols. Yes, you get deluges in places where they perhaps want those deluges to occur, but we have a whole lot of heat happening around the globe. We talked about the heat in India. We have that kind of heat in Pakistan right now. We're about to get it in the Pacific Northwest. The areas that they're able to cool down are getting smaller and smaller, and for every cool down they cause, it makes the overall warming worse, not better. Now, as of today, we do have, and I posted this earlier in the day today, we do have now, thanks to physicist Marvin Herndon, we have now a publication in a peer-reviewed science magazine. And this is posted on GeoWatch. It's on my Facebook pages as well. So my gratitude to Dr. Herndon. I know him fairly well. I invited him and he attended with me the CalJam event in Southern California. He has shown great courage and I'm grateful to him for that. And there are ongoing efforts in other arenas as well. People are waking up, and this wake up would not have happened without everybody's effort to sound the alarm. So many activists in so many ways are moving the ball forward every single day, and that's what we have to do. We absolutely have to, every one of us. And if we do that, our combined efforts will matter. There's a publication out today also from the Australian Independent Media Network. The title of their article is called Calling Game Over. This is the type of publication we will see more and more of as reality can no longer be hidden. I will post this in a day or so as quickly as I can get at it. The basic premise of this long and well-written and well-documented article is the reality we have known is over. It's a mathematical fact. It's ending by the day. But again, we do not have to feel aversion to that. Change is a part of reality. We can embrace that change and try to point things the right direction or be averse to it, but we'll see more and more of this type of article. Russ, you guys are supposed to get a cool down in the coming days. Again, I'll get this map to you in a moment, but at least you're getting some rain, correct?
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of rain. We are way below the average that we're supposed to have for this time. So rainfall is deceptively light considering the cloud cover and all of the lightning activity we have. But yeah, we're still way behind.
My location in Northern California for the last 8 years, and again, there's the rumor that the drought is only 4 years old. That's not true. We're 240 inches of rain short, 240. And back to, again, standing on credible data, seeing a lot of data flying around that there is no water shortage, that we just have to tap into primary water and deep strata water. And again, people are grabbing at straws. This is not reality. It's just the same as thinking we can burn up all the fossil fuel and then just magically switch to renewables and everything will keep going on fine because that's what the science fiction movies show. That's not reality either. We're facing changes, but we can accept those changes well or poorly, but accept them we will one way or the other. So we should focus on how we can best utilize what's happening right now. Russ, let's get to calls, and I'm going to ship you, if I can, if you can forward this to the chat room. It's a very profound, the latest NOAA forecast, which is nothing more, I don't like NOAA any more than anyone else, but the fact is their weather modeling is done by Raytheon. Raytheon is one of the defense contractors that is a key player in the climate engineering insanity. So when NOAA posts a map, this is the scheduled weather. And this map should be looked at very closely because it's as unnatural as it is unprecedented. It's completely unprecedented. So anyway, I'll ship this on and you can forward it to the chat room. If you can give the phone number, that would be great.
Absolutely. For those who want to call in, the number is 718-717-8296. It's 718-717-8296. And there's still plenty of time to call in and get on. Do you want to take callers now?
Yes.
Okay, Dane, I think you said yes. We lost audio there.
Yes.
So,
Yes, let's take callers, Russ. I'm ready.
okay, very good. Caller with your number that ends in 1-4. What's your first name?
Hey, how you doing? Hey, Dane, you were talking about the drought being longer than what they're saying. I was just reading a National Geographic magazine from 2010, and it had said in the magazine that the drought in California is 3 years old. But there's an observation I made. I'm a little nervous. Sorry, I'm trying to calm down.
That's right. Who are we speaking to? Who are we speaking to?
Sorry, John, and I'm in Minnesota right now.
Hi, John. Thanks for calling. Continue.
Sure. There's the people that are saying there's a global cooling right now. A lot of them are referring to a documentary about the coming ice age that was made in the early 80s and late 70s. I watched that documentary, and you can tell none of these people have ever watched that documentary. Their whole first half, it was saying how the interglacial ice age periods would end with a natural global warming on the planet. And they were saying that man was causing global warming. In fact, the whole first half of the show was about man-made global warming. The only difference is they were saying that global warming would heat up the tropics and cause all that moisture to go to the poles and cause an ice age. So these people that are saying it's cooling, the actual evidence they're using is proving them wrong.
Well, again, there's a lot of that type. Thank you for bringing that up, John. And there's a lot of that type of material floating around. There's a lot of charts that are authored by an individual that nobody knows. They don't come from any source, any recognizable source. They're not based on any factual data at all. Here's the bottom line. The planet in the elliptical phase of its orbit was cooling until the Industrial Revolution started. Warming was more or less linear and progressive until the late 40s, at which time the climate engineering programs were significantly ramped up. There was a leveling off of temperatures, and we do not know if that was actually happening on the ground or if the data was being falsified to make it look like climate engineering was working, because they're definitely doing that now. We're seeing a falsification of data to the downside, as I mentioned before, 4 and 5 degrees in many cases of underreporting. So that may have been the case between the late 40s and the 70s, but because statistically it showed like it was cooling, we had 20% of the climate science community scratching their heads wondering, how could it be cooling? This contradicts everything we know. Maybe there's something we don't know. Maybe we're heading into an ice age. And now that headline is used over and over. Just like the ClimateGate East Anglia emails, which I've read. I talk to people who throw that out as a proof that there's some sort of big hoax going on. They never read the articles, never. Just like what you're saying, the people who use the documentary you cited have never seen it probably. Here's the bottom line. The Earth has an energy balance. The equilibrium of the last 10,000 years is unprecedented in Earth's history. When you disrupt that energy balance to a massive degree, you lose the equilibrium. When you put 4 billion gallons of hydrocarbon into the atmosphere a day, which is about 100 million tons, that radically affects the energy balance. Cutting down forests affects the energy balance. Poisoning the ocean affects the energy balance. And certainly climate engineering radically affects the energy balance. So right now, again, Earth is warming right now at the rate of 400,000 Hiroshima bombs per day. That's 4 per second. That's absolute fact. We've had the 359th consecutive month of above normal global temperatures. This is why it's important. This is why being correct on the climate is important. I've said it over and over, but please let me say it again. It's important because the only way we're going to get the climate scientists to find their spine, and they've lost it. There's no question they lost it. I've engaged with enough of these people face to face. I mean, they have absolutely given up any semblance of honor. The only way they're going to find their honor again is if we give them enough solid ground to stand on. And if people that are trying to reveal the geoengineering reality are completely incorrect on the state of the climate, again, a state that climate engineering is making worse. The planet is warming. Climate engineering is making it far worse, not better. That's why the credibility is important. That's why having a correct compass setting is important, because we need to unite with these other communities so that we can bring this to light once and for all, show the military what they're doing, those members of the military, honorable military brothers and sisters who are being lied to about what they're doing and why. We need to unite with enough of the science community and the community as a whole so that they realize, the military personnel, that they are killing their own with the rest of us. That's why credibility matters.
Can I say one more observation I noticed? I drove this summer from Minnesota to San Diego, because that's where I grew up, and back. And the whole way through all different types of, there's the Midwest has a different weather type than the Mediterranean weather type of San Diego. So it wasn't the region. There were dead trees everywhere. The town of Pueblo, Colorado, every tree had a receding hairline. There's dead trees. I drove over 4,000 miles. I could not believe how many dead trees I saw. And like you say about the bark beetle, a beetle is not going to take down an oak tree.
They don't. Thank you for the observation of the trees, because it is happening. Trees, insects, we're seeing decline of the entire web of life, and it's an astoundingly rapid decline. But with confronting people, officials, and so forth, again, for all of us, this is where we need to stand on credible ground and confront these people peacefully, but very steadfastly. Challenge them. Ask them, what have they done with their courage? Why are they towing the line for this crime against all of life, this omnicide? That's what it is. So that again, if we learn enough about the trees, about what's really happening with the climate system, and it doesn't take long to get somewhat up to speed with some solid facts and have credible data to pass out. All of us need to engage in this, all of us. And I appreciate your observations and pointing out what you witnessed on the documentary. And a documentary that I would recommend everybody watch is called Chasing Ice. I've said it before. It's $3 online, I think, to watch this film. Everybody has $3, I think. And there's no politics with this film. It's simply film footage that can't be ignored. So anyway, I hope we all take our compass heading every day. I don't want anybody to believe me. I've never asked anybody to believe me. I just simply ask them to do honest investigation without preconception and bias. That's all.
All right. Well, thanks, Dan, and thanks, Russ. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, John, thank you for calling. Thank you for calling. We have another caller with your number that ends in 65. Who are we speaking with? Caller with your number that ends in 65. Are you there? Okay, caller, your number ends in 63. What is your first name?
My first name is Rob.
Hi, Rob.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Dean and Russ?
Good, thanks. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I have more like a generalized question. It could be directed to you or Russ. I mainly had it for everyone listening. And, I live here in East Hampton, Connecticut, and we've been having some pretty heavy spraying lately. And whenever I watch it, I wonder, what are people thinking when they see this happening? And, because we have all these issues happening with the spraying and then Monsanto and with the GMOs and the fluoride in our drinking water and Fukushima. I just wonder, at what point are we going to come together and realize this is a real issue that's happening and affecting us and try to come together as a species and stop it? That's really my question.
Russ, I think I was directed to you. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I think it was directed to both of us, but I think that the question, when is it going to happen? I think it's going to happen when people start to suffer enough. Unfortunately, when we live in a society where people, and I'm not saying everybody, but when so much of the population is motivated by selfishness, then we have a situation where people are not motivated until they are personally affected. Dane, what do you think?
I think you're right on target. You're exactly on target, and that's why things have had to get this bad. The normalcy bias is so. We've got somebody's audio maybe turned up a little too loud. If they can turn down. The normalcy bias is so profoundly strong with Americans that until their head is just about literally on fire, they will not acknowledge what's going on. So you're exactly correct, Russ, but we are at that point. We're at that point now. We're seeing an unraveling of the paradigm we've known from so many different directions, and the climate, again, as a part of that. That's why it's imperative that we all keep pushing as hard as we can, so that as people's lives unravel, they will have a clue as to why it unraveled, and they will have a clue how important it is for them to join our fight.
It makes a lot of sense, Dean.
Thank you, Ron. And I sense your angst. I'm not sure if we have Russ. I think we might have. Russ, you there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm still with you.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I couldn't see on the screen. Anyway, I certainly sense and feel your angst, but we all feel that. And again, if we just embrace this fight, accept it, and to spend our time on it, not so that we can move back to other things that are more personal, with our personal pursuits of pleasure, that we accept this is a mission to deal with this. This is the most important thing we could do for our children. We must engage fully in this fight. So anyway, but Russ, your points are exactly on target.
Yeah, thank you. Is it Rob, you said?
Ron,
yeah.
Okay, Ron.
Thanks for that, Ron. Anything else on your mind?
No. Well, no, I think that would be about it, actually.
Well, hey, Ron, again, don't lose heart. Keep your face to the wind. Learn what you can every day. Arm yourself with data. There's a sense of empowerment that comes with knowing that you can start spot fires of awareness with those around you. And you have to feed that fire every day. You don't work out one day and say, I'm in shape for the rest of my life. That's it. It doesn't work that way. You have to do it every single day. Same goes with our philosophy. You have to exercise it every day. You have to put the rubber to the road every day. And when you feel in the trench, you have to fight out of that trench and start moving forward again. So encourage you to do that. You're not marching alone. We all march together, my friend. Thanks, Ron.
Thank you, Dean.
Ron, thank you so much for calling. I would encourage people to learn the health effects. I know so many people that when spraying becomes intense, they suffer, and they don't even realize this is the cause. So start putting 2 + 2 together for these people. Kim is with us directly through Skype. Kim, are you there?
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi, Kim. Yeah. What's on your mind?
How's it going, Dane?
Good, thank you.
Because I like to visit a lot of different groups, and I've been kind of just listening and watching and seeing what people are frustrated with, trying to come up with some ideas for some solutions when it comes to activism. And people are trying to become active, but then they're feeling like they're hitting a brick wall sometimes, and they get really frustrated. A lot of times what happens is a person will come in and just kind of debate with them, or they keep saying, well, where's your proof, and all this stuff. And I'm feeling their frustration and their pain, but I've been coming up with some solutions, and I've been trying them out, and they seem to be working. I just want to share that with you guys really quickly.
If it's a couple things you can go through quickly, Kim, we can do it here. Otherwise, if it's long, we can post it. If I could elaborate on your point, and I certainly know all of us go through what you just described, and the bottom line is we have to decide when we're starting to pound our head against a wall, and that means dealing with a person who does not want to wake up. And I know a lot of people that will spend a necessary amount of time on such people. You can't wake someone who's pretending to be asleep, as the Chinese proverb says. Move on. We have to move on in those cases. Plant the seed, because they'll be forced to wake soon enough, as we've talked about. And this is where polishing our philosophy matters again as well. You have to be able to accept the quote-unquote rejection from those who don't want to wake up. And you must keep in mind that if you have delivered the message credibly and competently, you have done your part. You have done your part, and move on. And you should take solace from the fact that you did your part. And that's what matters. That's what matters. It's back to the correct use of our own will. That's all that belongs to us. The results do not belong to us, but the correct use of our will does. It's not about religion. It's just about reality. So the bottom line is, again, we have to learn to adopt and exercise a philosophy that allows us to function when we hit those pockets of resistance, but we move on. We move on, right?
Absolutely. One of the quick things I was just going to share was, like, you can meet this a brief momentary opposition with a family member or friend online or whatever. And of course I see it to its highest degree online. But what I'm telling anybody that is asking me questions that I might not be able to answer, well, what proof do you have and things like that? Well, I know for myself there's enough credible data to validate my concerns that geoengineering, chemtrails, weather modification, that I feel my concerns are valid enough that I would like the powers that be to halt geoengineering and have our concerns looked into. I think that we deserve to have our questions answered, have investigations begun, and have our concerns looked into. Because I don't have all the answers. And what I've been telling people as civilians, we really don't have that kind of money. We're people. So we're not federally, we don't have the federal backing to do these big, thorough investigations. So I feel that as a society, we have enough evidence and enough information from plain old consumers doing their own testing and their own research that I feel we have a valid enough concern and a valid enough complaint that we should have this investigated.
But the government's not going to do that, Kim.
They're probably not, but that's my smart mouth answer kind of for someone that's saying, well, why don't you have proof? Well, we're not federally funded, for one, and two, we don't have all the answers, but we would like the answers. So this way I kind of shut down.
I would argue we do have proof. We absolutely have proof. In fact, as I've said over and over again, we have film footage of the crime happening. End of the argument right there. That's the end of the argument. When people say they're not spraying, when we have film footage of military tankers spraying at altitude, nozzles visible, we have photographs of those nozzles up close, argument over. It's done. That's it. No more argument. We're not discussing whether or not it's going on. And if people want to discuss that and people post, and I get this on my pages and my site as well, when people have clearly not done a stitch of investigation and they come in with this skeptical attitude and haven't lifted a finger to do any investigation for themselves, I don't have time for that. People must, a sincere question I will always try to answer. I work into the late hours of the night trying to answer sincere questions, but for those, and they're not hard to spot, who are simply there to play this devil's advocate. This is not a game. It's not a game. And if people sincerely cared on websites, they would do some investigation instead of putting down their list of questions without lifting a finger on their own. And I would argue that you or me or Russ or those of us that are heavily engaged in this fight, we don't have time for that. Those people need to at least try to find some information. That's what we have websites for. Otherwise, we would have just a website that had a phone number. If you wonder about this, just call me. That's not why we're here. We post a website so people have a tool so they can use that tool so we can more effectively and efficiently fight in this battle. And that's exactly what we must do. And in regard to the government, again, we have to remember, we don't have a country with a government. We have a government with a country. The government is nothing but a state-sponsored mafia. That's what they are. We must reach critical mass. And once we do, and we're getting closer by the day, it's going to be a rough ride from there, because the they're trying to get close to playing their cards right now again. But if we can spend time with those who want to wake up and not waste our time with those who don't, we'll start a lot more spot fires. And again, we need to make every day count. Kim, if you can post those ideas down, please send them to me. I know you'll send them to Russ, and let's take a look at it, and we'll try to see what we can incorporate and try to improve our template. Like on GeoEngineering Watch, we have activist suggestions link, and we have flaming arrow link. Those are tools that people can use, so they don't have to start from scratch. It's all there. So maybe we can use some of your ideas there, Kim, if you can send that to us. But thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll try to do that soon.
Thank you.
Have
and
a good night, guys.
Thanks for all you do for Global Skywatch too, Kim. I know you work hard with a lot of other tasks in your life, and very grateful for that. So let's all keep pulling together.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you for your love and your support, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you for all you do. And, for someone who has watched the sky all my life, the first evidence for me was that I looked up and I saw these huge jets flying so low that you could practically read numbers if they had numbers, but they were unmarked jets crisscrossing the sky, leaving trails that spread out and covered the sky. That was the very first source of very basic evidence. Science is based on observation, and when people confront you that way, Dane, I think they're just trying to waste your time. I mean, there's enough people in this world with common sense to turn the world around if they would only become active.
They need to put the rubber on the road. Exactly. And I don't waste my time with those who clearly only want to argue. There's not enough time to afford wasting it in that manner. I'm looking at another headline right now. We'll get to a caller in a second, but this is also from the Rice Farmer site. E. coli being found in larger, more regional water supplies. E. coli is a bacteria that has been experimented with for chemical ice nucleation or biological ice nucleation. And we know they're nucleating just about every bit of moisture they can. This cools off temperatures on the ground temporarily. So again, the complexity of what we face, the degree of contamination we face, not just from heavy metals, but also from other elements, biological elements, highly toxic elements. So again, nothing short of a fight for life for us. And I would encourage people to go to that Rice Farmer site. Rice Farmer, excuse me. Russ, we got anybody else waiting? Let's try to get a few more in.
Yes, we do. Caller with your number that ends in 50. Who are we speaking with?
Alan David.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
Hi, Alan.
Fine. How are you guys?
Good. Well, what's on your mind?
Well, I had a question for you. Are you aware of, or do you know a guy by the name of Professor James Roger Fleming?
I know the name. Continue.
Are you aware of a couple of his publications or anything?
It's not coming to mind right now. Enlighten us.
Well, I wanted to pass this on for people who want material to, basically use to, move people towards waking up. I discovered this guy a little while back, and he's very impressive. He's a professor of science, technology, and society in a college in Maine, and he's got a publication anybody can download for free online. It's a PDF. You just put in a search, a PDF titled The Pathological History of Weather and Climate Modification, 3 Cycles of Promise and Hype. And he's also written a book in 2010.
Sorry, I know he is now. Go ahead. Continue on.
He wrote a book in 2010, which I'm in the process of obtaining, and it's called Fixing the Sky, The Checkered History of Weather and Climate Control, and it was published by Columbia University Press. And I looked at all this guy's credentials and everything. He's very impressive. Anyway, the abstract to this pathological history, it's short, and what it says is that the checkered history of weather modification, weather and climate modification exhibits a modicum of promise and an excess of hype. This paper examines 2 completed historical cycles, the first dating from 1839 involving Western proprietary rainmaking or pluviculture, the second from 1946 to 1978 involving cloud seeding, commercial rainmaking, and the attempted weaponization of the clouds. Recently, discussion of weather and climate modification has returned to the science policy agenda, framed as seemingly inevitable responses to killer storms and global warming. The long history of deceptive and delusional attempts to control nature, however, raised serious questions about the rationality of these options. So I'd say that this is, when I read this PDF, it's the most impressive history I've ever seen, footnoted sources, and he goes back into 1800s, stuff I've never even come across before. So I would encourage people to get this and become familiar with it and have it in your, as you say, arsenal to show people that there are educated, very educated people who are aware that this stuff is being forced on us, and it's not rational. He tells you right here in the abstract, this stuff's not rational. He's a scientist. This guy, he's in meteorology. If you look at his curriculum vitae, he's got a huge list of publications, and he's very impressive. And so I would refer to him and some of his.
He doesn't actually admit that geoengineering is going on outright, though, does he? Because he lists it as an option.
In this document, he talks about geoengineering, and he talks about a Department of Defense statement that the geoengineering is a solution to global warming, and he says it's hype.
But he doesn't actually admit it's going on, perhaps because he can't and still retain his life, if you will. But this is where, again...
Yeah, he's probably... He's
This is
probably
where it's a good, I think he's the real deal. I'm not trying to argue with you on that. I think he's a good guy and he's saying all he can. But it's important also for people who are perhaps new to the issue to have enough solid data so they understand and they can effectively read between the lines that maybe Fleming is saying all that he can, but the fact is there's not a checkered history of weather modification. It's an extremely dark and decimating and destructive history. He's saying perhaps all he can and still be able to be published, and I'm sure there's good data in the book. It's still important to remember to convey enough data to people so they understand that this is not a question of an option or something that might be done or that's been proposed. It's been a very lethal reality for 6.5 decades or more at a significant scale. So just important to combine enough pieces to the puzzle so that people can put a picture together and are not missing a part because it hasn't been admitted to in a book. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what he's referring to is what they're saying. He's saying they're saying it's an option. He's saying it's irrational as an option.
It is irrational. I agree with him on that. But it's not, again, if he says it as an option, that doesn't indicate that it's been a very, very harsh reality for 65 years. But we all need to learn to sift the baby from the bathwater. I don't doubt there's a lot of good data there. I recognize who he is now. I go through a lot of data from a lot of sources, so it's hard to pull one up in a flash, but I know who he is. But I appreciate the suggestion, and again, let's all keep pouring over material, and if people find material that they think that we might have missed, Russ or I, please get it to us. And hey, thanks for bringing Fleming's book up, and we'll try to grab another call or two.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
All right, Alan, thank you so much for calling. Caller with your number. Actually, one thing from the chat room, we have somebody asking, Dane, can you talk about the massive red tide? The algae bloom is absolutely massive from California all the way to Alaska. What do you have on that?
I posted on that a few days ago, and I've actually talked about it for a number of years, the ocean die-off. And again, this is where we have a lot of people thinking dichotomously. We have some blaming it all on Fukushima, which is definitely wrong. Fukushima is horrible and huge ramifications, but there's much, much more going on. So let's go back to climate engineering. Shredded the ozone layer. That's releasing much more UV radiation, killing plankton. It's altered, and this is most important, it's altered upper-level wind currents. They have aggressively tried to suppress El Nino since at least 2007. This is part of the, quote, ridiculously resilient ridge over California. It's an absolutely direct attempt to thwart El Nino, to stop the ocean from releasing that heat, because that then shows up on temperatures on the ground. That then makes it look like climate engineering isn't working, and of course it isn't working. So they have tried to suppress El Nino. They've bottled a tremendous amount of heat up in the ocean. They've stratified the oceans. We're heading toward what's known as a Canfield Ocean right now. This is a stratified, anoxic, oxygenless state of the ocean. The oceans die, we die. So the bottom line is a lot of things contributing, including the depleted uranium being used for practice. I spoke to the Navy's PR person myself about this, who didn't see any problem with using depleted uranium to practice off the California coast. So we have a lot of things coming together, but the single biggest factor, especially in regard to the algae blooms, is a radically warm and stratified ocean. That has come from the previous factors I've mentioned, and also with the large fish die-offs. In addition to the algae blooms, we also have anoxic and hypoxic zones, oxygenless zones, because the seabed is gassing. It's absolutely gassing. Methane, CH4, and hydrogen sulfide, H2S. It's gassing in a way that this deoxygenates the water. That's when you have all the fish float up, belly up overnight. So a lot of factors coming together, but I would argue the single greatest factor in that massive pool, which is growing and pushing into the Arctic, by the way, right now. There's water pushing into the Arctic from this extremely warm area off the U.S. North American west coast, with temperatures 5 to 8 degrees C above normal. That's up to 15 degrees above normal. We're going to see some huge, huge impacts soon. But the single greatest factor with this pool of warm water in that particular place, I would argue, is most directly linked to climate engineering and its alteration of wind patterns and ocean currents.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We have a caller with your number that ends in 64. Who are we speaking with? Caller, number ends in with 64. Last call. Last chance, anyway, I should say. All right, caller, that ends in 823. Are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Hello.
Hey, Russ and Dane, it's Helen.
Hi,
down here in
Helen.
Georgia.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, all things considered.
What's on your mind? I was just asking what's on your mind. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, my question, I'm seeing a lot of radiation-type damage to plants for the past 3 seasons, and also some cauliflowering of weeds. As I'm out mowing my pastures, I'm observing all the different grasses and weeds and plants, and I'm, of course, very familiar with this piece of land. I've tended it for the last 22 years. So I'm a little bit alarmed about what I've been seeing, and, of course, I'm wondering, is this something that the UV rays that you speak about, could they be burning and causing a radiation-looking damage, or would that be more fallout from the spray, or, again, we've got a potential Fukushima fallout in the rain? So what are your thoughts on that tonight?
Frankly speaking, it's unlikely the levels of radiation necessary from Fukushima would cause that. It is much more likely, and I would argue that the primary source is the excessive UV radiation. You do have, if you've had an ice nucleated event over you, and that can even happen in the summer, they're nucleating whatever they can in order to cool temperatures down on the ground, and you can have a flash burn effect on the leaves. This chemical nucleation process is profoundly powerful. We had the last nucleated snow event over Northern California. Temperatures only got down to 30 degrees, but we had date palms that are hardy to the low single-digit temperatures. They were so chemically flash burnt with this ice nucleated material that they almost died, mature trees. So it's profoundly powerful, the chemically nucleating material. Again, if it's sitting on the surface or whatever surface it's against, it can cause a sort of flash burn. But beyond that, absolutely positively, the UV is the major issue. It's burning the bark off of trees in many parts around the northern hemisphere right now. That burns the Cambrian layer right off the tree, and we know it's that high. We're not guessing. We're metering it. And when people deny that the UV is high, again, it's the same as those who denied Agent Orange was harmful, and those who claim that couches and chairs burning on the first floor of Building 7 caused it to collapse in 7 seconds. There's just a whole lot of people that can look you right in the eye and lie. But the bottom line is, Helen, I would attribute most of what you see to radically high UVB radiation. Again, we're seeing about 60% of incoming UV is UVB. Should be no more than 5%. We're seeing UVC on the surface. There should be none. We're told UVC stops 1,000 feet up in the atmosphere. UVC is the last band of UV radiation before X-ray. That's how intense it is. So bottom line is, no ozone layer, no life on Earth. They continue to geoengineer. It's yet one more angle, which it'll be the end of the road. So if you search geoengineering is destroying the ozone layer, you'll see data on what you're observing.
Right. Well, and also I wanted to let you know, with the lawyers that you're working with, the incident that I observed and personally witnessed on May 30th, 2012, I have a lot of documentation. I've got photographs. I've also got the two sets of lab test results. So if that could be of any use to you in following up on the legal end of this, I am more than happy to provide you all with that.
I'll keep that in mind. Definitely will. There'll be a point in time when such discovery issues will be sought out, and I will definitely keep that in mind. And in the meantime, for all of us in whatever region we're in, we should publicly but peacefully confront our authorities, our meteorologists, and make them understand that the public is waking up to this issue, and the public will hold them accountable at some point. And hopefully trials that will resemble Nuremberg-type trials. These people need to be told this so they understand their lying will not be with impunity, not forever. This issue will come to light. It's coming to light quickly. So we should convey that message with confidence, peacefully, not threateningly, but that's a very harsh reality that authorities, meteorologists, all those lying for the power structure, congressional aides, that's something they need to be told and made to understand. The public will hold them accountable at some point. So thanks for all you're doing, Helen. We're trying to grab one more.
You bet. Good night, guys. I'll just hang up now and keep listening.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Helen. Thank
Bye.
you for all you do, and I'm sure I'll be speaking with you soon. I'll be getting back with you soon. Caller with your number that ends in 25. Who are we speaking with?
Yes, hi. This is Lori, Northern California.
Hello, Lori.
Lori.
Hey, quick question. We definitely have heard the scheduled forecast for triple digits, 113, which if they're underreporting, that's even higher. I'm wondering if we can share with the listeners to log, track, record, and document. This past Thursday, Friday, many of us have noticed an odor and tingly fingers and severe, profound sedation. I'm concerned if they're going to increase and ramp up the heat to unbelievable temperatures, what they could overlay on top of that, something they've never done before. I don't know, but I'm just kind of putting it out there to pay attention, and let's all work together on tracking this new level.
Yeah, we're going to see a profound and extended heat wave. And again, through this type of what appears to be intentional building of the high pressure heat dome over the western U.S., the type of short bright trails that creates that silvery white sky where the sun rises in the morning, sets in the afternoon. It's very, very silvery white, extremely intense UV. All of it goes together. I mean, if people in the chat room, Russ, did you get the map I sent?
Yeah, I sure did. I posted
I've
that.
seen several. Yeah, the satellites. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's not satellite. This is actually a NOAA map, which shows again.
That has been posted to the chat room, Dane.
Okay, thanks, Russ. It's completely unnatural, completely unprecedented. 30 degrees above normal in the west, 25 degrees below normal expected in the east in the next week. Climate engineering, top to bottom, period. And also, before I forget, I do want to mention I have secured I think I might have mentioned this last week as well. I'll say it again, but a large auditorium, Redding, California, Friday night, August 14th. This is a very upscale auditorium, seats over 1,000. I expect to have quite a few big names there. At least one attorney from our team will be there making a statement. We want to have the biggest event ever. So those that are close enough to come, again, admission is, of course, free. There will be free materials there. A very nice upscale auditorium, excellent parking right in the middle of Redding. Again, it seats over 1,000. So I hope that everyone who can will come. And I'll give more details on that in the coming week or so. We should have a flyer out with that. So I just want to make that announcement as well.
Very good. Lori.
Yeah, Lori's a part of helping to organize that too. I want to thank her and all the rest that are doing everything they can. And I think Lori's working on farm letter outreach and so many activists. Again, it's everybody pulling together, everybody doing their part wherever they're at. And I want to express my gratitude to everyone.
Very good. Lori, thank you so much for calling. We've only got about 60 seconds. Caller with your number that ends in 61. Do you have a quick question?
Hello?
Hello, caller with your number that ends with 61. Do you have a quick question?
Hello? Yeah, I have a question. Hello?
Sure, what's your question?
I live in Long Beach, California, and you guys mentioned about California's drought for the fourth year. So you mentioned about the ridiculously resilient ridge of high pressure. I've been seeing a lot of aerosols, chemtrails. Like last week I saw a couple of them, and wow, just pretty ridiculous what they're doing.
Oh, we're going to lose you. Sorry about that, Russ. Go ahead.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm sorry for the callers that we couldn't get to. This is GeoEngineering Watch Radio. We're here every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Please join us every week on UC5.tv. Invite your friends to come next week.